Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. D-Rez, this is Kneon, and we're going to talk about licensed IPs. We're going to talk about whether or not a company has an obligation to do right by the IP that they've licensed. And my personal opinion is yes, they do. Some companies would disagree, as we've seen over the last couple of years. But we have some folks here who are very familiar with the world of licensing, including Mr. Matt Moylan from Udon Entertainment. Hello, Matt.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit? You want to talk a little bit about what you guys do at Udon?
I'm the director of publishing at Udon, and we are a publisher of comics, manga, and art books, generally based around video games and usually Japanese video games and anime properties, and sometimes original stuff.
Sometimes original stuff. That's good. That's good. No, you guys do really good work. We've known each other for a very long time, and I'm jealous of the IP that you guys get a hold of. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and before that, I've been working with IPs since you called me. I worked it out. It's like 23 years now. I've been working with licensed properties, so lots of experience. That's pretty much all I've done for like that for the last 23 years.
Also returning to the channel for the first time, a pretty long time actually, is Mr. Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm here. Yeah. Mr. Sparrow does have extensive experience with licensed properties at a variety of different publishers.
Yeah, that's actually how we met, is that I was working on the Disney properties for Boom Studios. And you were someone who was on my radar because I had an idea for the Darkwing Duck reboot that I wanted to do, and I was told that I would not be allowed to write it myself because I hadn't made my bones, even though I was the only editor at the company that had been published outside of the company. But the managing editor didn't like me, so I wasn't going to be allowed to write it myself. And so I was looking for people that were Disney fans. And for those of you that don't know, Kneon is a huge Disney guy, which you should all know, but he's also a big Darkwing Duck fan. And I found some of his work. I found like a pitch that you had done for Gladstone that you had posted.
Yeah, we actually, when I was with Gemstone, I had talked about doing Darkwing Duck. And it's so weird because, I mean, I'm not saying that they got any of the ideas from us, but some of the ideas we kicked around, they actually wound up doing something similar in 2017 DuckTales. Mm-hmm. We were trying to like modernize it and trying to like bring the comic books and the cartoons together. And it's like, not that they, not that I'm accusing them of anything, but obviously it was in the zeitgeist that we were.
Yeah, same thing happened with us. We had a ton of stuff that was rejected by Disney, by the approval people in Glendale that somehow found its way into the DuckTales stuff. And again, not saying anything happened. A lot of people can arrive at like the same kind of conclusions and ideas. But it was a little bit infuriating because you're like, we were told no. And then you see what they do and you're like, oh, our idea was actually better. Like it would have done better. But it would have been smaller. So obviously legal is going to look at something for a cartoon show. And they, then whereas with a comic book, they're not even going to look. They're just going to say no.
Pretty much.
We'll
talk about the Disney stuff.
So I did Disney licensing. I worked with DreamWorks. I worked with Sesame Workshop. I've just worked with a ton of licensors over the years.
Warcraft too, I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah, I did some Warcraft. Did some, Devil May Cry. So yeah, I've even done some Capcom stuff. Devil May Cry, and I did a little short, a little short story for Matt over at Udon. So that was a lot of fun.
Everybody's gonna walk away from here with a new gig. That's what the goal is for the night. John from John's Longbox, how you doing, sir?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
So I met John for the first time. I've actually been aware of you. I've seen you before on different streams and on Twitter, and we hit it off on Wes's podcast. And it was a pretty good conversation we had. So I thought I'd have him on here especially as a comics consumer, someone who's a big fan of comics, to weigh in on, from a consumer's point of view, what do you think of all the licenses, how they've been handled maybe. And also we're going to talk about, your own project. Aaron's got a project. We got all kinds of projects here. So let me, how should we start this? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about licensed IP. And there's been a tendency in recent years to license an IP and then, I don't want to say betray the fandom, but let's just say go in the opposite direction of what most people would expect them to do with the IP, right? Is that fair? Is that a fair thing to say?
It's totally fair. Yeah. It's almost you could set your watch by it these days. Like for the past 10 years, you'd be like, oh wow, they're making He-Man. I loved He-Man, and you turn it on and it's just like, why is He-Man not even in this comic? Why is He-Man not even in this cartoon? You know, everything is changed. Like we were all excited for the new Star Wars, and it's like, well, where's Han? Where's Princess Leia? Where's oh, it's new characters. I at the risk of sounding like a pretentious person, but I always call that stolen gravitas. It's like somebody made up a character or a committee made up a character, and they just insert it into an existing beloved IP, and it didn't earn its place. You know, and they full out admit, we don't want to do the work. We don't want to build this character up for 5 years. We're just going to make Miles Morales Spider-Man.
It was interesting. I remember reading the interview with the guys who did the D&D movie, Honor Among Thieves, which I actually thought was pretty good. But they said in the interview, they said that they basically wanted to tell their story, but they had to use Dungeons and Dragons as a Trojan horse to tell this story, which I think happens a lot with a lot of licensed properties. Matt, do you have any experience? Can you shed light on this in terms of like what a licensor expects? Do they give you guys a lot of leeway with it?
I mean, it's different every licensor, but our goal is usually, I mean, our first thought is to remember that we're shepherds of the property. If it's something we're licensing, and especially a lot of the time we've licensed things that are kind of in a low point. Like when we licensed Street Fighter, this is a little bit before my time. When Udon first licensed Street Fighter, there hadn't been a game for a few years. There still wouldn't be another game for another few years. So it was kind of a almost dead property at the time, and it's kind of the same right now with Mega Man. There's not a Mega Man game right now, but we've just licensed it. So we're kind of taking care of these properties until the next game happens. And I mean, there's always that urge to like, I want to put my mark on it and show my version of this property. But we like to do that through, I guess the events, like come up with fun events and stuff, but keep the characters true to who they are. It's sort of this is Ryu doesn't change and Chun-Li doesn't change and Mega Man doesn't change, but here's what would happen if they were in this crazy new situation. But the characters themselves, you don't want to reinvent them. You want to give the fans the characters that they know.
Wait, Matt. So what you're saying is you're taking these existing characters and their existing personalities, and you're putting them in new situations, and then allowing them to react to the situations based upon their preconceived personalities.
Sure.
Wow, what a novel approach! I can't believe that you're doing that. You are a crazy man.
You're not lifting your leg all over these characters and covering them with your scent.
I mean, we've made up some new characters for Street Fighter and stuff, but right now we are doing some comics with some new original Udon villains, and the reason is Capcom kind of asked us. They're like, oh, we're slowly introducing the Shadaloo main villains into the new game. Could you maybe not use the Shadaloo villains for a while, because we don't want people like the stories to get mixed up. We don't want people to be confused about the stories you're doing and the story we're doing. So like, okay, so we'll make up some original villains, but still really try to make them fit into the Street Fighter universe. Like, characters that, like Street Fighter characters generally come from a country, they're very, they might have some cliches or they might have some martial arts that's to that country, but they have a strong link to their country. And they're also, even if they're bad guys, there's very few characters that are evil. They're just, maybe this guy's a jerk. Or even characters like Sagat and Balrog have some goodness to them. So I don't know, we don't want to we need to bring Street Fighter into the modern era. We need to be we need a TikToker character who's that's not what we need. We need Street Fighter characters. We need martial artists who all have their different reasons for fighting, right?
Do any of your new characters, are they in a wheelchair as they're fighting?
No.
Why not?
Ableist.
We did at one point, I think I've told the story before, we did at one point consider having Guile lose his arm, and then the idea is that he'd have to learn to do a sonic boom with one arm, because he does it with two, but his mentor Charlie only does it with one. And Capcom just nixed it for the fact that they thought, oh, it's too taboo to have like a crippled person fighting sort of a thing, something like that.
Really? Because you could do prosthetics and things like that. I mean,
I know, but I mean, I think they have a history with it where they at one point that they wanted Oro to be a one-armed character, and they backed off for the same reason and made him. They came an alternate solution. They put his arm is tied behind his back instead of having one arm, so they could have the same thing. But
who owns these new characters that you created for an IP?
Well, they're derivative, so they're part of the Street Fighter universe. So we know that Capcom owns them. That's like our anything that we put in the Capcom comics, they own. We kind of have a arrangement where this is because it's a Japanese company, and Japanese companies, you'll find this especially with like manga, and even if it's based on a video game, the license will usually be like, okay, we own the characters and you own the comic, and we can never do it without each other, like the sort of a thing.
Oh, a more honorable way of doing things.
Yeah.
So like what if one of your characters blows up then that could really help you?
Oh, I suppose. I mean, we'd love to see them turn up in the games, or they're working on, Legendary's working on the movies now.
That's great. That's cool.
So, Aaron, let's talk about the more dishonorable way that license holders treat their licensees. No, I mean, look, Aaron and I have both worked in Disney Comics. We know the deal. You get the Disney license, they own everything. And they can reprint it, republish it, whatever, change it, whatever they want to do with it. That is the deal. I've had my work turn up in like Peru. Like I have no idea. You get no additional compensation for that, I don't think.
Nope. You don't even get a copy of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you.
A copy of them tell you. Sometimes your name's not even on it. But I mean, different licensees have different deals. But if you want to talk about your experiences maybe with different companies and how they deal with licenses, that would be pretty cool.
Well, the only time I've ever had my name taken off of a Disney product was by Boom itself. So, they very famously, let somebody else take credit for a bunch of work that I did. And now, fortunately, on the honorable side, when those stories were going to be reprinted by Joe Books, Disney said, well, go back to Aaron Sparrow and James Silvani and restore their original scripts, restore their original vision for this. So when we got to do the Definitively Dangerous edition, that reprint, it had our original scripts, and I was able to make a few tweaks here and there on stuff that I didn't write, but to make it kind of fit. And it was much better received by the Darkwing Duck fandom. So that was kind of like a vindication moment. They were very props to Disney Publishing on that end. I cannot give enough credit there. Anything that you create for them, and we knew this deal going in, so I mean, I'm not bitter about it. Because sometimes people say, well, like, what if they made a pin of like Juggernaut, although he wouldn't be called that in the park because they rejected his original name. But what if they made a pin of Natmare and they sold it in the parks? Aren't you mad you wouldn't get a piece of that? And it's like, no, I mean, it would be nice if I did, but like I knew the deal when I went in. I get no piece of it. They own everything. They used a character from Landry Walker and my work on Incredibles in the park. They used to have like an Incredibles parade, and they didn't have enough villains, so they took a villain from the comic book and put her, made like a cardboard thing that kids could throw beanbags at. So you could throw them at Syndrome, you could throw them at the Omni Droid, and you could throw them at this character. And that was like super flattering to see. Yeah, I mean, the deal. And the idea is that, when I was working on Darkwing, anything that we created for that property was for that property. It's not like I was giving them ideas that I would use elsewhere. It was for the Darkwing property.
Do you think that would hamper you from like you coming out with your best ideas? Like, I know if I worked for Marvel, just imagine tomorrow Wizard said, Bing, you're working for the Fantastic Four. I don't think I would make new villains. You know what I mean? I'd tell a good Annihilus story or Doctor Doom, but I'm not going to make new stuff because then next thing you know, I'm going to resent that kid in the pajamas with my character,
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem, isn't it, with modern Marvel, is they don't have enough of a creator participation. They don't pay enough to get people to create new IP for them. So that's why everything is derivative. We'll just create another Spider-Man, here's Silk, she's a Spider-Man. Here's Miles, he's a Spider-Man. And Bendis probably had a better deal than most people get. So there's no impetus for you to create anything for these companies. Why would you? Right. Save your best ideas for yourself, put it out, and then have full control over it. So everything with Kneel Before Doomface, for example, I completely own, I have complete control of. And anything that's made, I have a say, I have the final say in it, and I have, the most financial impetus to do it or not do it.
Well, now here's a question. This comes up a lot, when you're dealing with licenses and you're dealing with business just in general. Is it better to have 100% of a smaller thing than it is to have, maybe a smaller percentage, but it is a massive pre-marketed franchise like Marvel or Star Wars or whatever, so I mean, I guess that's kind of where I look at it is like part of the reason that people get these licenses is it's pretty much guaranteed sales, right? You've got an existing fan base. Well, you hope you have an existing fan base, and you're hoping to market to them. Whereas if you do something yourself, you have to build it from the ground up, right? So
yeah, if you have a Rob Liefeld deal where you get a percentage, he was very smart and he negotiated a percentage of every character that he created there. So whenever they use Deadpool, they do a movie or something like that. Even though he gets snubbed on the red carpet by Kevin Feige and not invited to the party, he's still getting a check. Those deals don't exist, and especially once Disney bought Marvel. You and I both know, Kneon, Disney does not want to give anybody a penny for anything, no matter what their contribution was. So. So it's at that point, it is better to have 100% of something that you have to build from the ground up, because the kind of deals that Rob got, they just don't exist anymore.
I know Chuck Dixon said he probably made more money off of Bane than any other character that he created. It's been in movies, toys, lunchboxes, T-shirts, cartoons. And then
DC's deal is much better than Marvel's.
That's what he says. He said he would never go back to... I'm speaking for Chuck Dixon now, but he said he would never go back to Marvel because of the participation doesn't exist at Marvel. But DC still has okay deals. Probably not. I have
to wonder if that wouldn't change if they change hands. They're talking now about splitting Warner Brothers into two different companies. Are they going to take it's just speculation on my part. Are they going to move DC Comics over to this other part and then be like, oh yeah, all those deals, they're not valid anymore. We're just going to nix all that and.
That's what Disney tried to do with Star Wars, right? With all the expanded universe stuff.
Yes.
They tried to screw all of those writers.
Technically, it's a different company. Technically, we don't have to pay you, and we know that technically you don't have the money to sue us, so good luck with that. Yeah, that was unfortunate. So, Matt, what of all the properties you've worked on more than Street Fighter, right?
Yes.
What is your favorite?
I wrote a big list before this. Let's see.
Oh, you did? Okay, you're doing it. Yeah, okay.
There's some properties that I've gotten to work on: Transformers, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, Master of the Universe, Thundercats a tiny little bit. And at Udon we do Street Fighter, Darkstalkers, Final Fight, Mega Man, Rival Schools, Devil May Cry, Monster Hunter, like Resident Evil, everything Capcom. We pretty much tried something, and then we've done lots of other games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Gears of War, Sonic the Hedgehog, Persona, and we do anime like Genesis Evangelion, Bubblegum Crisis, Macross, and Robotech. I've worked on both of those. Both of those versions, Samurai Pizza Cats, and lots of Marvel and DC stuff. My favorite property that we've gotten to, I really love that I got to do a little work on Ninja Turtles, because that was, I had a lot of toy lines as I was around for He-Man, because I was born in 1980, right? So I got every 80s property. I was really into He-Man, really into Transformers, and then Ninja Turtles is the thing that I had, every toy of. So, also got me into comics through the Archie comics. Like that was the first series that I bought, multiple issues of. I got to work on Ninja Turtles at Dreamwave. We did the comics adapting the animated series that was on at the time, and I got to and because I was in charge of the lettering department, I assigned the lettering to me. So so I can say I worked on a few Ninja Turtles comics, but that was pretty cool to do. And it's actually nice. It's nice to have not worked a lot on some things, because you kind of start to lose it. It changes. Your enjoyment of the property changes to something different. Like I always say, I'd love to work on something Gargoyles. That's one of my favorite IPs, but then I might really not love Gargoyles as much as I do if I actually got to work on it for a while.
It becomes a job, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell a funny Gargoyles story really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
Okay, so I tried at Boom, at Ape, at just every single company I've worked for, at Joe Books. I kept trying to get them to do a Gargoyles book, and I'm friends with Greg Weisman. Wanted him to come back and do it. At one point, James Silvani and I were even in talks with Disney to get the Gargoyles and Darkwing license and publish them ourselves. And we had a whole pub plan laid out, and then that's when Dynamite swooped in.
Sorry to jump in, but we also pitched specifically to get Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck at one point.
That's fine. That's fine, because at least you might have called me, and you would have called Greg. But really tried to get that done for Greg for a long time. And Greg told me a story about when Slave Labor Graphics had the license, and he said he was getting notes back where the person that was doing approvals would tell him this character wouldn't do this, and then he had another. He said the best note that he got was because he was writing all of Hudson's dialogue in a Scottish brogue so that it came through in the dialogue, and they kept correcting him, and they were like, "This character doesn't talk like that." And finally, Greg had to say, "Not only does that character talk like that, but I created the character and I cast the voice actor." So it's really interesting. It's like you don't own this property that you created, and you've got somebody who just has come in and taken a job, who has a book of rules and has to justify their job by giving you notes. And so they start picking at things that they don't need to pick at, or that they don't have knowledge of. I had a situation when I was working with Jesse Snyder and we were doing Toy Story, where someone from I can't remember what approval team, because I had to go through like 3 approval teams. They came back and they said, "Yeah, you have to take out this dialogue because Lenny, the little pair of binoculars, doesn't talk." And I gave them the specific moments in the film when he talks, and I said, not only does he talk at these points in the film, but he's voiced by one of your directors, Joe Ranft. And I sent that back, and then when I got the notes back, there was a note from Kelly Von Bright at Pixar that said, "Stop giving Aaron notes. He knows the property better than you."
No, that's absolutely true what you say. There are people who just they have to say something or to justify their job. Yep. I have to give a note. So when I used to write a webcomic called Bravo Man for Namco, and I kind of got a person like that, and I started putting things in for them to catch, so that I could argue about the other things that I really cared about. You know.
Oh, that's
Alan Gladfelter intentionally started drawing Mater's one longer tooth on the wrong side, so that they would give him notes on that. Like he would find something to draw wrong intentionally, and he would already have the corrections done before he even submitted it. But he would give it something for them to catch, so that they'd leave the rest of it alone.
Oh, that is pretty brilliant. Yeah. All right. So now they felt like they contributed.
Yeah.
So my favorite. I did a duck cover for IDW. I did Test Track, the ride, the Disney World ride, and I put a guardrail on the ride because the ride has guardrails, and they told me to take the guardrail off because it would make people think that the ride was too dangerous.
Jill Thompson once got a note when she was working on X-Files covers. She told this story to Jesse Snyder, where they told her, "Can you make this look less like David Duchovny and more like Mulder?"
Sure.
And she was like, "What?" She was like, "What do I do with that? What does that mean?"
So let's go through the process here, right? So you guys were talking mostly comic books, but we'll get into the bigger licensing deals here. So who approaches who, right? It's been your experience, and either Aaron or Matt, you guys, whoever wants to speak first. Does the company usually approach the license holder, or do they approach you, or do you bid for that, or how does that work?
It can go both ways. I mean, at the beginning, it's of course, obviously, you approaching them to get started. But if it's something that we want to do, we'll go to the licensor, and if it's something available, we'll ask them about it, and we have to put in a formal proposal and a minimum guarantee, and when you're going to sell it, and where you're going to distribute it, all this. It's actually very rarely is it about the creative pitch. It's usually about how much and when you're going to release it and that stuff. But as you build relationships over the years, then they start coming back to you and say, "Hey, you guys did great with this. Do you want to do this one?" That's how it really works with a lot of our Japanese licensed manga and art books. The Japanese publishers will just come to us, and we don't always have it guaranteed, but they usually bring stuff to us like, "Do you want to put in a bid for this? We don't know if anybody else does, but here's some stuff that's coming up." For the Mega Man comic, I guess I could say this. There was another licensor who wanted to do Mega Man comics, and Capcom came to us and said, "Hey, someone's interested in Mega Man comics. Why don't you guys do Mega Man comics? Like, do you want to do them?" And they're like, "Yes, we really do want to do them." Because it had been for a few years, they just weren't interested. The current licensing team wasn't. The producers in Japan weren't interested in doing comics. I think they just wanted to break after the long Archie run. But yeah, so they brought Capcom brought it to us and said, "You guys should do Mega Man comics." And we're like, "Great, we'd love to do that."
Were they afraid the other people weren't going to do it justice and it was going to happen anyway, or?
I think Capcom likes being with people that they're comfortable with.
Okay.
So they know that we've taken care of Street Fighter for 20 years, and they know that we'll take care of Mega Man as well. And I hope that we will. Our first, so this is Neon showing Mega Man Timelines #1. I've got a real one right here. It exists.
Oh, there it is.
What?
And what we're doing with our first series is there's so many versions of Mega Man. We're doing a mini series, 1 issue each for the 5 sort of interlinked through continuity versions of Mega Man, and 1 issue each for each of them. And then after that, we're going to do some mini series based on what the responses to the different one-shots we're doing. So this is classic Mega Man, and then we're doing Mega Man X, Mega Man 0, ZX, and Legends.
Awesome. You should do Mega Man Legends 3 as a comic.
Oh, that's what we keep getting asked, and keep giving people the answer like, I don't think Capcom would just let us do that unless it was something they really wanted to do. Because that's anyone who doesn't know, Mega Man Legends 3 was canceled and didn't get produced, and the second game ends on a cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. So everyone really wants to know the continued story of Legends, but I'm sure that's a story that Capcom wants to tell themselves. But if they came to us and said, we'd like to tell it through you, through the comics, so we'd love to do that. But yeah, I think that's a big thing to try to do. I think it's too big. We'll probably stay doing little side Legends adventures in the existing games.
Mega Man on the Moon for 4 issues, 5 issues, kicking around.
No, I think that what you're doing is a really innovative way to do it, to do a single issue based on each of the iterations to kind of, make sure that you get, you're hitting every fan. I think that's really, really smart. It's something that we did on our second run on Darkwing. It was like we wanted to have this big kind of Grant Morrison style Arkham Asylum, Serious House on Serious Earth kind of inspired story. And we were like, okay, well, what villains are in the prison? What villains can't we use because we have them elsewhere in the story, but who can we use? And we just went through every single like Disney adventures and because we were like, okay, every villain has to at least be in a panel so that if that's your favorite villain or, you remember that villain, like you get really excited about seeing them and knowing that they have the potential to be in the story in the future. So now, is that something, Matt, that depending on sales, like if you had one that like, you're like, oh, issue 3 like jumped off with this version of Mega Man, that would have some influence on what you did in the future? Or?
Yeah, we definitely know right after this we're going to do a Mega Man X series because Archie did so much classic Mega Man, so they've done that a lot. So and there hasn't been very much X, and it's a very popular part of the franchise. So we're going to do a mini series for X, and then see what the reaction is to all the other one shots. Also because we're doing other things related to Mega Man, like we're publishing new manga and we've got art books coming out and stuff. So there's all kinds of different Mega Man things we're doing right now. But yeah, definitely we want to know what people like maybe there's I'm writing the ZX one shot, which I'll be frank I'm almost certain is the least popular of all the versions of Mega Man. But who knows? Maybe those fans are just really hungry and they'll really come up because they don't get anything very much stuff related to their version.
Well, I know you got me in on Final Fight, like you did that. You did the Final Fight series where and it was just you retold, and you moved some things around in a really interesting way. But you basically retold the first game. And I was there for it because you get no Final Fight stuff, and I love that game. And so I was like, oh, you're doing Final Fight and you're writing it? I'm in. Oh, and Matthew Weldon's drawing it? I'm super in. Take my money.
That I definitely took the approach of just retell the first game, but with the context of what comes later. And that I know that these characters are connected to Street Fighter or what happens in the later games. And Lucia, the police officer, doesn't appear in the first game, but she does in the second. And we know that she's old-time friends with Hagar, so let's have her have a little cameo in this one. Let's have the other Bushin Ryu ninjas have a cameo. So I think it worked out really good. We'll see. We're probably doing a hardcover collection of that early next year.
So when you get these properties, you just mentioned all these characters and everything. Does everybody on your staff play this game, get super familiar with it before you let them, or are you guys getting stuff you loved to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something like that, like it's usually stuff we're already familiar with. For Final Fight, I replayed the first few games just to get back into the groove of it. But we mostly only license stuff that we're actually interested in. Like we turned down doing an art book for Five Nights at Freddy's. We're like, we're sure this could be huge, but nobody here plays it. We don't know this game. I don't think we would do it justice if we were to put together the art book for it. So. Well, this is like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we will take a chance on something like the Dark Souls art books. None of the main Udon staff were Dark Souls players, but one of the artists was like, "You have to do this. These games are amazing." Like, okay, so we trust you that they're great games, and that's one of our best. Well, the Dark Souls series is our best-selling group of art books. They'll probably only be eclipsed by Elden Ring pretty soon.
I usually listen to my kids as to what's cool, and my son's like, as soon as I told him that you guys were doing Dark Souls, he was like, "Oh my god!" He actually had on pre-order. I think before I told him, he's like, "Did you know they're doing this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I know one of the guys that worked on that book." He's like, "Of course you do."
And you didn't tell me.
He did tell me. I'm like,
yeah, and again, these are Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Those are books that we're localizing. But we still want to make sure that we're true to the Japanese book and to the actual game itself. So we work with like someone, we put someone on the translation team who's played the game, or we hopefully can get what's called localization documents from the video game publisher. So because they have to bring the game from Japan to North America anyway, they make a giant Excel sheet of every term in the game and like every weapon, every piece of armor, every location, and here's the Japanese version, here's the English version, so we can get everything right.
so you hear about it if you don't get it right?
Yeah. Okay. Capcom lately, I won't say that they're much crazier, but they've over the years, Street Fighter has had, like Street Fighter or Mega Man, even the official art was inconsistent. So they've in the last couple of years decided to go through Street Fighter and go through Darkstalkers and Mega Man and decide this is our official classic Mega Man. This is our official, Morrigan from Darkstalkers. She has this many sections on her ear wings. She has this many bats on her legs, and they're in these places. So we've had to get used to that over the last few years, where it used to just be like, if we could show an official piece of art, we could get away with it. If it looks like this official drawing, then now it's not that anymore. We've decided on a style guide version, but that's good. It'll help everybody be unified.
When you license these, do you have like a contract for time, or is it like sales? Like if you go below a certain threshold of sales, you lose it, or it's always time based.
Okay. And so almost any license is for a certain amount of years. So let's say 3 years, and we give them a minimum guarantee based on a minimum amount we expect to sell. So if their royalty is, I don't know, like 8, some people are a percentage of wholesale sales and some are a percentage of cover price. And it usually works out to about the same, but it just depends on how they want to do their accounting. But we give them a minimum guarantee. Like we say, we expect to sell, for Mega Man, let's say we expect to sell 10,000 comics in the first year. It'll be way more than that, but just an easy number. 10,000 comics, we'll do whatever percent of 10,000 comics, and we'll give that to them as a guarantee. And then if we sell more, we give them extra money. And that's usually how it works. And then at the end of the term, we decide if we want to renew. Most contracts have we have to tell them within a year of it expiring or 6 months of expiring if we want to renew. Or some of them it's automatically renewed unless either of us ends the deal.
Yeah.
So there's a few ways it can work, but usually that's how it is.
Yeah, has that been your experience, Aaron, with the contracts?
No, yeah, Matt, the way Matt described it is exactly how it goes generally. I've never had any contract that was any different than what Matt just described. That's there's always the guarantee, there's always the percentage, the royalty percentage. You sell more, they get their royalties off of that. And then they own everything. That's right. The way that Disney worked. Now it sounds like Capcom gives them a much better deal, where they're like, you own the comics, and we want to keep that relationship going, and that's probably like the advantage to Japanese businesses, is that once you establish relationships, they're very much about the relationship and maintaining it. So as long as you don't violate that, it's and obviously Udon does a fantastic job honoring the characters, which is key. And we can talk about companies that don't and how those have ended up. We can talk about like some of the product you've got behind you there, Kneon, Hasbro product. They were with IDW for years and kind of took their eyes off of what IDW was doing, and then IDW, along with kind of current day politics, started to insert a lot of insult is a Freudian slip. But they started to insert into the properties, a lot of things that weren't inherent there. So all of a sudden you had, the main thrust of the book was no longer the battle between the Autobots and the Decepticons. The main thrust of the books was gender identity.
Yeah,
and
very,
so
very weird.
Yeah, and so that's what killed that line. I know within IDW there was a thought that doing the Revolution line, where they kind of tied everything together. So Transformers was tied to G.I. Joe, was tied to Mask, was tied to, I don't know, Gem. They put all the properties together, and I had actually pitched on that. And it's funny, my idea for Mask ended up getting used, but without me. And then, it happens a lot in the industry. But, my idea was that, okay, well, obviously in this universe, Mask would be the human response to the Transformer threat. So you got some Transformers tech, and you started outfitting your vehicles so that they could transform. They're not alive, but, this is what the humans were able to do with it. And then, you got the offshoot of Venom. And if you wanted to, you could work that into an offshoot of G.I. Joe and an offshoot of Cobra, Venom being called, Cobra, Venom, matches together very well. So all those ideas were there. And when they went ahead and they announced Mask, and they put a writer on it who was very passionately advocating to race swap Matt Tracker. So the first images came out with Matt Tracker, and now he was black. But when I saw it, my brain interpreted it as, like, you're starting out with a mystery, like something's happened to Matt, and Hondo McClane has stepped up into the leadership role. And that's interesting. I was like, that's an interesting way to go. And then my friend that was at IDW was like, no, he... Brandon, the writer, really wants Matt. He's black, and he really wants to make Matt black. And I was like, oh, your book's going to fail. And he was like, what? And I was like, it's going to fail. And he was like, well, what makes you say that? And I said, he goes, you think that fans are that racist? And I said, it has nothing to do with racism. Right. What it has to do with is you don't have a Mask toy line out right now where Matt Tracker is black. You don't have a TV show. You don't have a cartoon. So the only people that are going to show up that care about Mask care about classic Mask. So when they see that you've race swapped Matt Tracker, you've lost their buy-in, because they go, oh, well, it's not my Mask. So it makes it very easy for them to skip.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, John. As a consumer, if you're a fan of something and you see a tie-in comic or a game or whatever, first impressions are everything, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like so cynical now, to the point where people like, oh, they're bringing back so-and-so. And my first reaction is, oh, I wish they weren't. Like, I haven't even seen a promo piece of it. It's, the Phil Moskowitz cartoon that you loved as a kid. I'm like, oh, now they're bringing back Phil Moskowitz. Lancelot Link. Let's say Lancelot Link. We all love Lancelot. But now Lancelot Link is identity politics and gender swaps and everything like that. I'm like, why now? Why are they? Couldn't they wait 5 or 6 years? I think this stuff is ending.
Yeah.
Like the story that I always tell is, if I could time travel back as a kid and be like, hey John, they're gonna make an Ant-Man movie, I would have been so excited, because Ant-Man was like my guy. Nobody else liked Ant-Man but me. I was like, oh my god. And then John, by the time they make a third Ant-Man movie, you're not even gonna see it, because you're gonna be, and I'd be like, no way, like. So I'm kind of burnt. Like, I love Superman. Superman's my favorite superhero. And people ask me, oh, everybody knows I love Superman. Are you excited for the movies? I'm cautiously optimistic. It's like, how many times are you going to take back that crazy ex-girlfriend? I could change. I love you. Okay. And then, next thing you know, you fight, and then she's throwing you out of the house again, and you're in the streets going, I fell for it again.
Twice. The answer is twice, by the way, to your question.
Oh, you're smarter than me. You're smarter than me. You know, it's like Lucy with Charlie Brown. You know, I'm just not even going to kick that ball anymore. I'm just going to, I got to wait. I'm sorry, everybody, but you've done this to me. Not you, you know, the general you have done this to me, you know.
Like, because you know, John, you know that like they're going to take the property that you love, and
right.
they're going to stuff its skin with what they want to do. You know, that's what you've learned over the last several years. And you know, Kneon, you and Geeky saw it with She-Ra. You know, it's like here's somebody who has a concept for a cartoon, and they're like, well, we don't want to gamble on your new property, but what if we give you She-Ra and you completely remake She-Ra in the image of this other thing you want to do?
Yeah, and you know, back to Hasbro with Transformers. I think what happened, my understanding, and Aaron, I don't know if you've got any more, you know, inside knowledge of this, was basically that Hasbro did take their eye off the ball, let IDW do whatever they wanted because they figured, well, they've been doing it for years, the sales have been good, and I think that's really the only time a company seems to pay attention is when the sales slip or the headlines are bad, right? When the headlines are bad, they're like, oh my God, we can't have our brand associated with whatever. Or if the sales start slipping, we're like, yeah, what's going on here? How come, you know, this book was selling 100,000 a month and now it's selling, you know, 3,000 copies or whatever. And they just kind of let IDW run with it because they thought they knew what they're doing. And I don't think they realized how bad things were until, again, those negative headlines, fan backlash, are like, hey, guess what? Most Transformers fans, they don't really care about the gender of the Transformers and who the Transformers are having sex with. Imagine that. You know, G.I. Joe, you know, we have a very patriotic comic with some people that really aren't very pro-America working on those books. That was starting to make some headlines.
G.I. Joe fans are the most rabid fans you'll ever meet.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So then they started to pay attention, right? So I guess that would bring me to what kind of an obligation, I'll throw it in Matt's direction here. What kind of an obligation do you have as a license holder to represent the parent company? And do they have maybe a clause in the contract that if you're not doing right by the property, that they could just yank it? Could they hold you responsible for damages if all of a sudden, you know, Mega Man's having 3-ways in the Mega Man book or something? They're like, oh my God, all the headlines are saying Mega Man's, you know, polyamorous. So what do we do?
Well, not in that way. I mean, our deal is that they have to approve everything. We don't go off. I don't know, like every comic that we make, even our art book or whatever, we have to pitch, you know, an outline for it, and then we have to show them the covers and we have to show them the full finished issue to approve at every stage. And, you know, they make little edits or like, oh, this is not accurate, or, you know, this is not right on the design, or they make little notes like that. Or we've got a new brand logo for Street Fighter. Like, it's kind of sad. They just finally retired. We've used the same Street Fighter logo for 22 years. And Capcom decided to retire that particular Street Fighter logo. So we've got a new logo coming up on some it's not going to look new to you. You're not going to really like, oh, that's a classic Street Fighter logo. I'm like, well, it's not the one that we like, that we've used. It's not the one that we've used for years and years. But that's fine. Things change. But that's our main obligation, to keep the licenses, to stay true to it. And I think that's what Capcom wants us to do. That's why they don't. If you'll notice, there aren't really any other Capcom comic book licensors right now, and that's because I think they don't want to take too many chances on people who might not take care of their properties.
Do you think they've learned? And look, if you don't want to answer this one, you don't have to answer this one. But do you think they have maybe learned, looking at the situation with other licensed video game properties, maybe other companies, and been like, we don't want Street Fighter or Mega Man to be treated this way. We're going to keep a tighter leash on things?
I don't know if they specifically have done it that way, but I think it's partly them being a Japanese company, and they're not so affected by any sort of culture wars that are happening in North America. So we're not trying to please anybody in the U.S. when we're submitting stuff or sending stuff in for approvals. We're trying to please people in Japan, like license how it works with a Japanese video game is, like, we go through the licensing department, but most Japanese video games, there's a producer and director, and those two people are in charge of the IP. So, if someone says, I want to put Dante from Devil May Cry and the new Smash Brothers, that Capcom, the licensed people, go to the producer of Devil May Cry and say, "Is this okay? Can we put Dante?" And he'll say yes or no if it's part of his plan, or if he thinks it's right for the property or not. So, I mean, Japanese companies are great that way, that they put people, like a person, in charge of the IP, and it's kind of their job to take care of it.
Aaron, has that been your experience with different different licenses you've worked with? I mean, obviously Disney has more control than a lot of other companies, although I've seen some weird stuff slip through the cracks on occasion. But do some companies just kind of fire and forget? Is that how we wind up with such bastardized versions of an IP in comic form or in game form or whatever, that the license holder is not paying very close attention to what's being done with it?
Well, with IDW, from what I know, the license holder Hasbro, they had somebody in their approvals department that was very like-minded politically to the things that IDW was putting in the book. So they didn't have quite as stringent a rule book, say, as Disney does. Disney, there's just things that concrete you cannot do, and we couldn't even, in our second run, we couldn't even show Darkwing with his gas gun on the cover, even if it had the grappling hook in it, because Disney has put out a blanket statement: no guns. Our characters can't have guns on covers.
Yes, I've been there. Yep.
Yeah, so you can't do that. Even, like I said, even if it's a grappling hook, and that's kind of how we got around it with when we were doing Double Duck and reprinting that and doing the covers. Is if Donald had a gun on the cover, it had to be a grappling hook. But this is years later, and you can't do it anymore. But with Hasbro, you had somebody in there, I'm told, that was very like-minded politically, and so was encouraging all of the things that were coming out of IDW. And then when Hasbro proper got a look at it, got the bad press, and started to see the sales drop, they were like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's, how the license ended up at Skybound. And if you look at what Skybound is doing, it's night and day. Those numbers never should have dipped to that level at IDW, because you've seen Skybound is killing it with those properties.
Transformers was the highest selling book of 2024, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
These books are like the only comics that people are excited about. I do a comic show, and people are always talking about the Skybound stuff.
Yeah.
Transformers was the highest selling comic of 2002 when I was working on it too.
Yeah.
When it was Dreamwave, right? Dreamwave.
Yeah. 6 months in a row. So, by the property, and people will come out.
Yeah,
and this is how funny it is in comics. Is it's so small. So at Dreamwave, I believe Adam Fortier worked there. And he actually worked at Boom when I was doing the Disney stuff, and at Joe Books when I was doing the Disney stuff. So it's funny, just like people move around, and these licenses move around, but sometimes it's some of the same people behind them.
I can believe that. I mean, it's kind of I've worked with some editors, especially in the Disney space, that they basically kind of, I hate to say carpet bag, but they basically go along with the license. Like, if you've got this license, you're working with this guy because this guy's worked on this license for like 20 years.
Yeah, if you're doing standards, you're working with David Gerstein. It's like that's
I don't want to name check him. I want to put him on blast, but I mean, that's fine. I worked with David for years, and but I worked with him at 3 different publishers.
I worked with David too, and I've hung out with him like at New York Comic Con and things like that. And David is such a he's got like a very kind of like gentle way about him that James and I used to joke we just kind of have to protect him from everybody in the city. But he loves the Disney stuff, and he follows it, and he gets himself he gets himself in there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, because if you want people that know what they're doing with it, and they've had a track record with it, proven success, then of course you'd call them. Yeah.
We certainly.
It's funny.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say we've fallen into that for Street Fighter, because we've been working with Street Fighter for so long. Some of the younger people at Capcom come to us for like brand questions. They'll have an obscure piece of art. Like, is it what game is this from? Is this official art? I'm like, oh yeah, that's it's from Street Fighter Alpha, but it was only on this version. I'm like, okay, great.
See, that's awesome. And when it comes to like the Disney stuff and Gerstein, I'll tell another little story here. When I first came in at Boom and they had decided to do Wizards of Mickey, I guess they had talked to David Gerstein or something at some point, but he had submitted a write-up for it, a script, and it was better. It was better than what we ended up doing. But Ross decided that because he didn't like one joke in the first page, that instead we should give it to his wife to write the script, to ghostwrite it.
It was pure ass. I mean, Wizards of Mickey was at the time. This is like, I don't know if anyone even cares about it anymore, but at the time it was like one of the top selling Disney comics of all time overseas. And we were pushing at Gemstone to get it, and they weren't interested. They thought it was too modern, whatever. And then finally, you know, they get it at Boom, and then they do it dirty. They put it in a floppy. They have a bad script. I mean, it was like money in the bank. It was like sitting there. It's like all you got to do is give this a proper translation, a prestige, you know, publication, because it was very nice artwork, very nice piece. And some of those covers were just absolutely gorgeous, amazing stuff. And really give it the prestige format, because that's what the customers like. And they did it just everything wrong right out of the gate, and it failed. And I called them out on it. I'm like, you know, this is money in the bank, and you blew it.
And that's why I couldn't hire you for Darkwing.
I mean, I really wasn't trying to be a dick. I'm like, but the Wizards of Mickey thing, that was something that we pushed for years to try to get them to do at Gemstone, and they just didn't want to do it. They're like, no, we like standard characters, we like the old fashioned art, we like da. It's like, no, this is really cool. It's like Tolkien and Mickey, and it's like, it's money in the bank, guys. You're walking away from it, and then Boom gets it, and they do the same damn thing.
Yeah, because it's like, as an editor, what do I do when the owner of the company tells me you have to hire my wife? There's nothing I can do at that point. Like, all I can do is try to polish it after the fact. But even then, I can't polish it much, because then, you know, the wife comes back and says, what happened to all my dialogue? You know, and so your hands are tied. And so Wizards of Mickey was what it was. And you didn't even say anything particularly rude. You just pointed out sales numbers. But that was enough. You know, at Boom at the time, it was a very toxic culture. And it was very much like, you would come in and you would be told, it's us against them. You know, every one of us in here is in the trenches, and everybody out there, we're killing Nazis. Everybody out there is a Nazi. And we're killing Nazis. That was the attitude. And it's like, I never had that attitude, because I was like, I know plenty of people in the industry that are great. And so, you know, but yeah, if you said anything about Boom, you were excommunicated, and you were attacked, and, you know, as you know.
I got a letter from them. It's weird, because Boom's the only Disney license holder at that time that I had not worked with. I've worked with like probably 5 or 6 of them. And I got this night letter from the sales guy, who I didn't even know. I didn't know him from Adam. And I swear to God, it was like 19 paragraphs. And I read the first 2, and I'm like, what a bunch of horse shit. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not working for Boom. I don't give a shit.
He would call us into the office and talk about, like, hey, let me read you this response I gave to this person that gave us a bad review on like Amazon or whatever. And then he would go in and he would like search all the stuff that they gave reviews on Amazon, and like try and build like a personality profile of them. It was weird. It was the weirdest company I'd ever worked for. Like I said, I never saw sexism in the workplace until I worked at Boom Studios. Like, all these things that you hear about at these big companies, until I was in the small little office of Boom. You know, it was just insane.
But they did well with Power Rangers.
Which is funny. It's funny because, you know, when I was pitching Darkwing and I really wanted to do Darkwing, I was told, oh, that sounds like a nostalgia play. I don't think that's really, you know, that there's really any money in that. Of course, when they finally acquiesced to shut me up and did it, it became the biggest selling thing that they did. Yeah. But yeah, then after I left, what did they do? They kept their company alive with nostalgia plays. Power Rangers, you know, like just whatever they could get their hands on. They tried so hard to get Ninja Turtles.
I really want to copy what they did with their super nice Power Rangers hardcover editions on their Kickstarters and stuff, but our regular editions are already that nice, so I don't know how to make them nicer.
Yeah, you know, the thing is that you know, I was speaking of sexism in the workplace. The editor that handled the Power Rangers license, and I'm sure convinced them to get it, Daphne Plevin. And she was the smartest editor working there when I was there. And she was treated, you know, I mean, I don't want to throw stuff out there that's going to, you know, get any backlash on her. But from my perspective, she was treated very poorly. And it was because she was a woman. She was like an assistant. She had to be an assistant editor. She had to make her bones, even though she was like better than her boss. You know, it's so that, like I said, that's the first place that I really saw sexism in the workplace, and every bit of success that they had on Power Rangers, I attribute to Daphne picking the team, knowing the property, and shepherding it.
Yeah, they did very well.
Did you guys hear about Brandon Sanderson was saying that he's just admitting now that all of these TV shows and everything are just taking the existing IP and then the writers are just inserting whatever they want, using it like a skin suit to sell their politics. And it's like, really? You just noticed that now?
Yeah, and I've been saying skin suit for years since this first started happening. So like it's like, okay, Brandon, congrats on being so brave to admit what everybody has already said.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody of that stature is saying it. You know what I mean? He's pretty uncancelable if people could still be canceled these days. But
I think he probably spends a lot of time actually working, so maybe he hasn't noticed things.
That's true. That's true. Maybe he doesn't watch things and notice, like, hey, wait a minute.
Wouldn't that be weird?
As a Tolkien fan, like, and everybody at my job, I'm a construction worker, regular guys, they're normies. And like, oh yeah, you like the Lord of the Rings. Do you watch the Rings of Power? And I'm like, I think I got about 7 minutes into the first episode and it deviated from Tolkien. Like, yeah, but it's still great. And I'm like,
no, it's not. It's actually not.
Yeah, but I'm not going to fight with these guys. I'm not going to argue. Well, actually, it's, in the civil area. You know what I mean? I could be that guy so easily. I just go like, well, I'm glad you like it, but it deviates from the book, and I'm such a stickler. Most of the guys are cool with that, but like, they still watch the show. They still talk about the show.
So they're the ones. They're the 12 people watching the show.
But I hate to say it, they don't know any better, and they just want to see some magic and sword fighting.
They don't think about the. They don't think about the story. They don't think about the construction. They don't think about character consistency. It's just, did I enjoy eating popcorn while I watched it? Yes, I did.
Unfortunately, yes.
And and that's fine. Like, sometimes I wish that I was able to do that. I wish that I could shut my editor's brain off, shut my storytelling brain off, and not notice all the plot holes and inconsistencies. But I can't.
Yeah, see, that's one thing. We talk about a lot of stuff on the channel. We talk about the culture war and all this, the weird decisions that they're making with the different properties. And really, at the end of the day, it is the normies who decide whether or not something is going to be successful. Like, I hated the Michael Bay Transformers movies. I hated them. I thought they're terrible, but they made a lot of money, so they kept making them. And and now Bumblebee's a Camaro forever.
Yeah.
he doesn't talk. I mean, that's the way it is, right? So sometimes sometimes things change because of that. But so John,
a crazy little thing that drives me crazy that maybe one of you guys will get, but because of Stranger Things now, the Demogorgon is this other thing, and it's not the Demogorgon from. And I like Stranger Things, and I say that to my wife, and my wife corrects me. She goes, "John, that's the Demogorgon now."
Yes,
like, it's the Demogorgon in the Stranger Things universe. It's not the Demogorgon. Even if you watch Stranger Things, and this is where you get into splitting hairs as a nerd, right? You're like, even if you watch Stranger Things, those characters would tell you it's not the Demogorgon.
Right.
That's the name that they gave it based off of the D&D Demogorgon.
And that
thing is not a mind flayer.
Yeah, that's not the mind. I know. Yeah, but my wife laughs at me. She goes, like, we just watched the ballerina. My wife and I, we went to the ballerina. I liked it, but I couldn't help but try. Why did John Wick show up? Where was he? Like, what continuity? At what point? They're saying it happens during the third John Wick movie. So I'm like, why did John Wick? I'm trying not to spoil it in case you guys want to see. But why would John Wick show up? At what point did he have the time to do this when he was doing this during the third movie? And my wife's like, just eat your popcorn, watch the movie.
I was more bothered in Stranger Things that one of the kids had an Ultra Magnus figure in 1985.
Yes.
That still chaps my ass to this day. It was so prominent too. It wasn't like it was like a background thing. It was like they're following. It's like, hey, it's the summer of 1985, and we're gonna follow this Ultra Magnus toy the whole way down the hallway. I'm like, it didn't happen.
There were many Transformers toys available in 1985. Why'd you pick one that wasn't?
Oh no! My friend Marie was laughing at me because I immediately reacted to that. I was like, wait, this is 85. Ultra Magnus wasn't out until like the next year. And she's like, I mean, does anybody really care? And I'm like, well, clearly someone cares.
Clearly somebody does.
Well, that's like my wife and I were talking. I think it was chapter 2 where they had the Mortal Kombat machine in 1989, and I'm like, the hell? But I think it was because it was a Warner Brothers movie, so they're like, Mortal Kombat. Warner Brothers will throw Mortal Kombat in there. We own it, whatever. But they were also playing Street Fighter 1. 2 players, different characters. They're fighting each other. I was like, what?
You could play it Ryu and Ken. That's about it, though.
Yeah, but it was like 2 different. I'm trying to remember. I only saw it one time, but I'm like, no.
It was it was the accidental feature that led to Street Fighter 2. Was it? let's just throw in a 2-player mode for fun in this video game. So just in case. And then that's what people loved, so they turned the whole franchise into.
Yeah, I mean, I remember people lining up for Karate Master because you could play against your friend.
Yeah.
You know, you could fight each other on the log or whatever, and you know, Yi Kung Fu was kind of
yeah.
I mean, you couldn't do 2-player, but you know, you were like fighting each master as you went along.
I used to get so mad in the the side-scrolling beat 'em ups when you could damage your partner and you're like pumping quarters in. It's like, stop hitting me, But that's how you get rid of the kid you don't know. It just comes up, with like a wad of quarters, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna park it here. I'm like, no, I'm waiting for my friend. I'm just gonna beat the shit out of you until you leave. Not to be confused with the kid that has the pocket full of quarters, who's like 10 years old and is ungodly good at Street Fighter Alpha 2, and there's no chance in hell that you'll ever be any good at Street Fighter Alpha 2 because that kid lives at that machine because his parents work at the mall. And
well, that kid
there.
The kid that only comes in with 1 quarter because it's all he's going to need.
Yeah, I know, right?
There was this kid, Paul Lee, that we grew up with, and we had a corner stationery store, and he would play Pac-Man, and he would put in 1 corner, and he would, no joke, play for like 2 hours or so, and we would have like 30 kids all crowded around cheering him. And I remember I said to Fred, the owner of I said, man, you must love this. And he goes, no, I hate that kid.
Yeah.
Because I had no concept of economics. He goes, I only made 1 quarter in 2 hours. He goes, all you guys go in, you play, you're feeding that machine. And it was like the jerk, it's an economics thing. It's a money game. I had no clue as a kid. I thought he was so impressed that Paul Lee could play for 3 hours on 1 quarter. Stupid.
Mortal Kombat 2 was designed to kill you. It was designed if you're too good. Like after the first, I'm trying to remember what it was. I watched a video on this, and it's like, that explains it because the machine would basically cheat if they thought you were too good. You get like two rounds into it. It's like, okay, cool. Now you're gonna get your ass kicked by Jax or whatever, and they would actually slow it down and be like, yeah, he didn't even connect. His punch didn't even connect. It's because they want you out of here so the next kid can come in, put his quarter in, get out of here. That's it. You're too good. You're too good. Get out of my arcade.
That's why if you needed to use your special move in Final Fight, it drained your health.
Yeah. That's what it's about. That's why I kept explaining to my kids. It's like, yeah, why are these Nintendo games so hard, Dad? I'm like, well, because a lot of people that worked on the early Nintendo games also worked on arcade games, and they were designed to suck your money. It's as simple as that. It really is. Hello.
Sorry, I think that's my doorbell.
Okay. So I guess, John, I'm going to ask you since we're talking here. Sure. Have you ever seen a licensed product that just is so off as a consumer? You're like, what the hell were they thinking?
Oh, like, I'll give you a second. That's throwing me off.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Like you go into
like a comic or a game or something that's just like so like out of character, out of whatever.
The Flash on a motorcycle toy, the Silver Surfer on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Spider-Man with a car.
the Punisher van with the big Punisher logo on it, because that's what you need to murder people in the city.
It's punishing time.
Would you think the Punisher would have like a beetle with like some dents in it and some rust that's totally invisible to people? But there's a lot of board games like Pac-Man, Monopoly. You know what I mean? Like, can we all agree Monopoly's a terrible game? Like, what? And then we're gonna put Pac-Man. Oh, now I need this game, or here's a good one. The Popeye board game. Does anybody remember that? Milton Bradley and I'm probably the oldest one in this group, but like, it made no sense. You just roll and move, and you're Popeye. She's Olive Oil. Just move around the board.
Wait, there's no objective. You just like move around the board. It's something like
it's almost like
movie where they just talk.
Collect cans of spinach. Then you beat up Pluto at the end, but you need to roll the exact. There was no agency. There was no decisions to be made. It was all dice rolling.
I did, however, love the Popeye Nintendo game that was just a Donkey Kong kind of remix, where Olive Oil would throw you hearts, and you had to run around, collect them, and Pluto would chase you around the screen, throw bottles at you.
So there's a story behind that. That's actually kind of where.
Isn't that backwards?
Yeah,
is it backwards?
Actually.
Well,
well, he wanted.
Well, no, but yeah,
he did Donkey Kong because he wanted to do Popeye.
Yeah,
Miyamoto, and then he wound up doing Popeye eventually, but then Donkey Kong kind of overtook. But yeah, I mean, he like really wanted to do that Popeye game, and I have a 7800 cartridge with an arcade accurate version of that game. It's fan made. It's coming on a cartridge sometime this summer, I hope, for my 7800, and it's a good game. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's hard. I mean, it's really hard to really.
Yeah, you get the spinach, but it plays a theme. You chase Pluto around. Oh man, stuff dreams are made of.
It's amazing how many IPs exist because the company couldn't get the IP they wanted. You know, like He-Man, they couldn't get Conan, or
that is interesting.
Well, it's one of the things that coalesced into He-Man was they were trying to get the Conan license and couldn't get it, and they had this other barbarian sketches that they included, and so it's part of the thing that started it. Or just like StarCraft, they didn't get the Warhammer license, that kind of stuff.
Oh wow, I didn't know that about He-Man.
Yeah,
watch the toys. Check out the toys that made us, John. The episode on He-Man. It's all in there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a Power of Grayskull. I think it was a documentary where they talk about it too. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. That I was thinking. So Mega Man, is that because they couldn't get Astro Boy? Or
well, I always use that as an example. Like people a few years ago, people were really upset that Mega Man's creator created another original IP called Mighty Number 9, and it didn't do very well in the end. But people are like, "Oh, you're just ripping off Mega Man." I'm like, well, Mega Man's pretty much just Astro Boy, kind of thing.
So,
and also, like, can you rip off yourself? Like, if you're like, "We haven't, I created this, and now I'm creating another version of it that I own." Because I lost the access to that one.
I'm still thinking of He-Man as Conan. Like, we missed out on a James Earl Jones Thulsa Doom toy that I could have had.
You can get one from Super 7. They made it a few years ago. I've got one.
With Riddle of Steel action, I could like cause my sister's Barbies to jump off a cliff or something.
So, let's see here. We're talking IP. We're talking rights holders. I guess I'll exclude like a company like Disney owning Star Wars or buying whatever. But I'll go around the E room here. Could you give me an example of a company that has done very, very right by the IP and one that has done very, very, if you're allowed to, in your opinion, has not done right by the IP? Well, we'll start with Aaron. Put you in the hot seat.
Very right by the IP. I mean, obviously, Skybound is the most immediate example of what's going on. I think that they're doing a great job. I think that as far as, I kind of took some shots at IDW, but let me give some credit where it's due. I think that putting Eric Burnham on TMNT Saturday morning cartoons, I think that is, anything they put Burnham on that has to do with old Saturday morning cartoons, be it the real Ghostbusters, be it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, guy absolutely kills it. So I think that those are examples of doing right by an IP. Doing wrong by an IP, I will say Dynamite's Darkwing Duck, Dynamite's Thundercats. Dynamite's basically most things that Dynamite does, because they're not really a comic company as much as they're a covers company. It's like, just churn out the comic and let us put 80 covers on it, 70 covers, and then until we hit diminishing returns, and then we don't need to do it anymore. It's a shame, because I think that they get really good licenses, and I think that if they had editors in place that cared, Nick Perucci could be making a lot more money. So I think that that's a bad example. I think that gosh, what else have I read that's terrible recently? I think that the Street Sharks book is going to be awful.
Okay.
I think that handing He-Man to Kevin Smith was a terrible mistake.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to talk about that, though.
I know. You got in trouble for that, but you were right about everything you said. So that's the beauty of it. Second season wasn't as bad, but still had a lot of really dumb Kevin Smith-isms and some Tim Sheridan-isms in it, and some modern day stuff crammed in that didn't belong there.
He's doing it to Spider-Man too, I guess. Spider-Man's pants ripped or something. I saw West Post.
Wait, they're giving Kevin Smith Spider-Man?
Yeah. They're giving him Spider-Man. Yeah. So
Oh,
I'm like,
well,
he's got web fluid, right? He can just patch his pants with. But there's a whole joke in there about how he ripped his ass on his spandex.
And knowing Kevin Smith, there's a joke about how, I accidentally shot web fluid in Mary Jane's face, but don't worry, it's really good for your skin. That's like Kevin Smith's wheelhouse. Let's talk about the things, Dick.
Matt,
Stan Lee said it in Mallrats, I think it was.
Well, Stan Lee just wants to show up. Stan Lee's getting paid. He's like, hey, you want me to say what? Yeah, okay.
Oh my god! All right, Matt, you can skip this one if you think it's or either that or
I'll give you a great
Udon
one.
Udon is doing a really good job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on Netflix, but I don't think it's Netflix. It's the producers. It's the guys doing Cobra Kai. It's freaking amazing. They have managed to be amazingly true to the IP and put in tons of great new characters. And do tons of new things and make the old parts of the franchise that maybe weren't even great better. So all of Cobra Kai was wonderful, and I'll give you my and my daughter's bad take as Barbie animated series have gone down after Barbie Life in the Dreamhouse. Barbie Life in the Dreamhouse was wonderful. Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures were terrible. And that's what I'll say about that.
I agree. I've had to watch many Barbie movies over the years with my daughter.
Barbie Life in the Dreamhouse is amazing, and parents can watch it with their kids. It's just friggin' great.
Okay, I did not expect the Barbie.
I like that dark horse choice.
I don't know how familiar you guys are, but there's a board game company called CMON. And CMON's they started out making miniatures, and I'm a big I love their games. I'm a freak for their games, but they made a series of comic books based on their games, and they're actually really good. They made a Zombie Side, which is a zombie apocalypse game. They made a Rising Sun comic, which was surprisingly pretty good. Minimal identity politics, but I mean it was a couple of years ago, so what? They made a Twilight Imperium comic. I was really I bought them because I wanted the extra board game content, and then if you backed it was a Kickstarter thing, and they sent you these hardcover books, and I just put them on the shelf because I'm like I don't want to read these. These is just. And Chuck Dixon actually said that he bought the books, doesn't care about the games, and gave the games away. And I was like, all right, if they're good enough for Chuck Dixon, I was really surprised. Really, it was really refreshing to read these books.
I did the same thing. I bought them for the game content, so maybe I should go and read them.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. There you go.
Yeah, they're having problems now. They're they're 17 unfulfilled Kickstarters or something, and
well, even worse now. They're selling off stuff. They sold off. At first, they sold off a bunch of kind of IPs that weren't active, or kind of side ones. Like they sold off Arcadia Quest, and they sold off. Blood Rage and some other ones. So, and I was talking with some friends like, as long as they'll hold on to Marvel United and Zombicide and stuff, they'll never give those up. And now they just announced they're selling Zombicide. So they are gotta be in a rough place.
I heard their stock is like there's some sort of like legal thing to keep it from being delisted. Like it should be delisted, but it's not.
Well, they're in Hong Kong, right? Bad. So it works a little bit differently over there, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot. I have a couple of their games. We bought the Masters of the Universe, and I haven't even played it. I just bought it for the minis.
Oh, it's a great game. You got to play it.
Yeah, I need to play it.
It says, I'll tell you, it says like up to 4 players, but it's best at 2 players. It's a great 2-player game.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that again. I have it packed away here somewhere, but I was just impressed with the sheer amount of stuff that came with it. But we got the most expensive. It was like $300. Yeah, it was huge. But so I guess I think we're gonna get around to wrapping this up. Usually I run about an hour, but I am going to give you gentlemen an opportunity to talk about your own projects. So not just a construction worker, not just an armchair critic here. John, you are also a comic book creator.
Yes, I'm making a comic called Heroic Tales, and I call it's a love letter to what I say a blue sky Bronze Age comics, meaning it's if you didn't see it in the Bronze Age, you're not going to see it in my comic. So it's it's not excessive gore, no nudity, no profanity, but I like to flatter myself by saying these comics would compete on the shelf next to John Byrne and George Perez, or my artist is Renzo Rodriguez, and he's also working on Deal Before Doomface. So Aaron,
we're gonna get to that one too. Man,
what a great talent he is! What a pleasure to work with. I'm just so happy. It's almost like it's when I write the script to him and then he sends it back to me. like there's no corrections needed. It is just perfect. So Heroic Tales is, I kind of modeled it after Astro City from Kurt Busiek's old DC and then later on Image comic. So every issue was going to be like two different characters because I've been making a comic based on my role-playing game, which is a Villains Vigilantes. Not my game, but a game that I've been playing since the 80s.
Yes.
And then my first character was the Patriarch. So I wanted to make a character that was like positive masculinity. Like, so he is a dad. He's a father. He's a loving husband. He's a devoted father. He's a protector of his city. You know, he's everything positive about man. You know, and then I also wanted to make him. He's a little bit. He's not a little bit. He's very conservative. He homeschools his kids. They homestead. You know, I kind of wanted to make him like the most anti-woke thing possible. And then people would tell me, "Oh, that's important. I really like the character." So when I told them that I was going to put a different character in issue 2, there was like a little mini rebellion. So I realized I got to dance with the one that brought me. So Patriarch is my flagship character. He, you know, I'm going to spin him off into his own comic. So next campaign is Patriarch #1.
There we go.
And that'll be his origin. And then this comic, I'm also debuting a new character. If you scroll down, this woman, that's Mary Sue. And Mary Sue, what do you do when you're already perfect? Well, this is the problem of a perfect girl. She gets godlike powers. She's a 22-year-old, wealthy, cute, 3 PhDs. You know, everything about her is perfect. And then you're gonna realize being perfect is not the best thing to happen. She's gonna do something that's gonna have consequences. You know, I'm trying not to spoil it, but I love this character, and it's funny because Renzo was like, I'll draw her because she's a girl. Now he's like, we need more Mary Sue. My parents said that this story is phenomenal. You know, Aaron read it too. Mm-hmm. I sent him the flawed pre-edited version by accident. So
I was writing to him and I was like, you know, you don't have any balloon tails, send me the balloons, right? And he was like, I sent you the pre-edited version.
Yeah. And these are varied covers. That's Josh Howard, who does Dead at 17.
Yeah.
Jose Garcia. What the Subterranean is the bad guy. He one of his main weapons is he's covered in mushrooms. So when you hit him, it releases these hallucinogenic spores. So I was like, Jose Garcia, you know, everything he does is hallucinogenic and trippy. So he would be perfect for a varied cover.
We are acquainted. Yes.
Yes, he's a great guy. And then nobody draws cuter girls than Josh Howard. So of course I had to have him with the female cover. And then below this, if you scroll down a little bit, this happened by a happy accident. I sent Martina Marcotto, who's also did the comic called Lady Alchemy. I sent her a T-shirt. And I said, would you model it? Because I figured I'd sell more T-shirts with the beautiful woman modeling it. And everybody said, you got to make this a cosplay cover. So this happy accident. So there you go. There's a Martina Marcotto cover.
All right.
Yeah.
That's on fundmycomic.com, which is an independent comic book crowdfunding site. I know a lot of people are jumping ship going over there.
Right. And I'd like to point out, it's only $10 for 2 complete stories. You don't have to wait 3 years between issues to find out what happened. Mm-hmm. You know, and every issue builds on the next issue, but it's a complete satisfying read, you know, in the book.
So we're going to get this thing funded. It's going to make a bunch of money, and we're going to make movies, and then you're going to be able to license it out to somebody else. And
I'll license out to Matt. He seems to care about his properties.
Matt cares about it.
Yeah.
Matt will do right by the Patriarch, right?
That's right.
All right. So
let's just make the Patriarch a woman.
Oh my God. Did you have the Matriarch as a villain?
No.
All right. So speaking of Renzo, right? You guys are sharing artists here, right?
Yeah.
Aaron's got Renzo on Kneel Before Doomface.
Same color.
Completely independent of each other. John and I are sharing art teams, and because I have a backup by Josh Howard, but I was dumb. See, John was smart. He had Josh do a cover with a attractive female on it. I had Josh do the Colonel Silverstreak PSA backup. You know, so we do the whole. You know, now the kids say, you know, the kids go, now we've learned, and Colonel Silverstreak is, and learning is not an inconsequential percentage of the equation. And then, you know, Silverstreak, you know, say. So Josh did the first one. No ladies in it. I better bring him back for a lady cover in the second one. So yeah, Kneel Before Doomface, art by Renzo, colors by Oscar Carreno. They are doing an absolutely fantastic job. We are in the lettering stage on book 1 right now. We're already working on book 2. So much like John said, this is not something that you're gonna have to wait 3 years, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years to get. Like, we plan on keeping your interest high by continually producing books. Kneel Before Doomface is the story of a villain from the 80s, a very Doctor Doom / Skeletor / Hordak type, who gets banished on the eve of his ultimate triumph, and then 40 some years later is accidentally brought back to this plane of existence through the incompetence of a Ghost Adventures style television show. Okay. So he's reborn into our world and decides he's going to reestablish himself, but obviously the world's a lot different than it was back in the 80s. And so he takes on the show's producer, a young woman named Lexi Vega, as his major domo, and decides he's going to train her to be a supervillain, and she will teach him about all of the changes that have happened in the world, and her film crew will film his exploits. And then the B story is these two characters, Notorious KID, whose real name is Spam, and Iggy the Inflatable Iguana, and they are two small town heroes who have done some good in their small town, and they decide to go to the big city of San Fransangeles, which is 49% criminal, to make a difference. So they're going to this crime-ridden cesspool to make a name for themselves and to actually try to help people at the same time that Doomface makes his big return and resurrects his, reestablishes his castle over the city. So the conceit of their story is that what if breaking into the superhero business was like breaking into the modern-day comic book industry? So the first problem that they run into is other would-be superheroes called the Social Justice League, who don't feel that they've been properly vetted.
The Social Justice League.
Yeah, and the Social Justice League originally, if we had hit our top tier goal, the book would have expanded and it would have been 2 chapters in 1. We didn't hit that goal in the initial round of funding, so the Social Justice League doesn't appear until chapter 2, so that'll be in book 2. But yeah, it's all trucking along really well. We've been doing really well with it, and there is still time to jump in. Not much time left, because once the lettering is finished, we'll move into post production. But still plenty of time to get in there right now.
All right, and that's out on Kickstarter right now. Which they're doing. I know they let you do late pledges now and all that, which is good, because that was actually one of the big advantages I think that Indiegogo had for years was the store right after you do your project that you could bid after the fact, and now Kickstarter's letting you do it, which I think is pretty good, because a lot of people sleep on these campaigns and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I think we closed
last month.
I think we closed at like 18.7, and just from late pledges, we're almost to 22. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Project we love too. Look at that. That. All right, and then of course, I'm going to let you, if you want to talk more about Mega Man, Matt, go for it.
Mega Man. I think I went over Mega Man pretty well. I'll give you guys something we're doing over the next 3 months next 3 weeks or so is announcing our 3 big fall art books. Okay. And we've already announced Elden Ring official art book volume 3, and that is there it is right there. Yeah. You can get it on pre-order right now, and it is covering all the art from the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. So that's coming in November, and the 2 other ones, they're going to be announced over the next couple weeks, but I'll give you a tease of what they're going to be. One will be an anime art book, one of the top 5 highest revenue anime properties of all time, and it has very rarely had an art book in North America. So we're going to be doing, that's one thing. And the second thing is a video game art book. We are bringing back one of our most demanded video game art books. It's been out of print for quite some time, with a new updated edition with new content. So look for those in the next couple weeks.
All right, and you can go to store.udonentertainment.com.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys will get everything sorted with the comic shop situation too. I love this Tankhead book.
The Tankhead book is amazing. Where it's the second printing is on the way from overseas right now. That is an original property from Emerson Tung. He started it as an Inktober project where he just drew these robots and then developed a whole continuity for it. The general idea is it's kind of between World War I and II, like a fictional world.
Yeah.
But it's what if nobody ever thought of tank treads? So they put they put the tanks on top of robots.
Awesome.
I would do that. I'd be like, hey, yeah, let's mech it out, man. No, I love it. I saw this a couple months ago, and I was like, I love the look of this book. I just this could be a video game. Should be a video game.
Should be
Emerson's got a bunch of things in the works. He's trying to take it all the ways you would think that this type of thing would go.
All right, cool. All right, gentlemen.
Is that a miniatures game too?
That's what you would think. It looks like it's a miniatures game. I think he's hoping to get there eventually. But if you open the book, it looks like a guidebook for a miniatures game.
Yeah,
Like
it looks.
it's
Oh man, that
like
looks so base game. Oh man,
it just goes through and does it's like vehicle profiles. Like here's all the troop capacity. Here's all the armaments. Here's how this robot was developed over the years, and it evolves into this version later. And so
that is so cool looking.
yeah, the second printing should be arriving in about a month or so, I believe.
And it's funny, as Neon was cycling through, it was like, oh wait, stop, let me see the Darkstalker stuff. Oh look, let me see the Elena book.
Rival Schools.
Rival Schools. I am so psyched that the collection just came out with Rival Schools on it. I'm like, yeah, I got to play Rival Schools again.
Yeah. That Rival Schools hasn't ever been re-released, so that's wonderful. I think for some years, somebody at Capcom told me there was some music rights issues, that it wasn't worth it to pay those just to throw it out until they could make a really big deal of it, and I think they have with the Capcom Fighting Collection too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this looks great. Love that character.
That's being written by Jim Zub.
Oh, then you know it'll be good. Jim Zub's great.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much for joining us this episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, so leave a comment, guys. Leave a comment below. Let us know what your favorite licensed property is. Anyone who's done a very good job with your favorite license. People maybe that haven't done such a good job with your favorite license. It'll be interesting to see what the responses are. Again, check out John's Long Box. He does excellent work on comics, covering comics. Check his channel out. Check out his book, Heroic Tales.
Thank you.
Aaron Sparrow, always a pleasure. Aaron, check him out on Thinking Critical, Twitter. You're all over the place, man. Where
Instagram, yeah.
Instagram.
The only place, I mean, you can find me on Facebook, but if you message me there, I probably won't see it for several weeks. So you're better off literally anywhere else.
All right. And Mr. Moylan, Matt Moylan, I know you're on X. Where else should people check out your stuff?
That's really it. That's where I update people about Udon projects and things mostly.
Okay.
We also have a great Udon Discord.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know you had that. Well, there you go. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we will talk to you later.